talk about making cuts and we talk about fixing the budget, there's a basic principle that everybody shares the pain as we share the glory. One of the things I'm looking at is NPR radio. I like NPR radio in a lot of ways, but quite frankly, they have a bent that doesn't suit me. If they want to have a political bent, they should go, what do we say, commercial. What are we doing about squeezing those dollars away from NPR radio and putting the scholarships for kids to learn something? Thank you.
Good. A good question, and we actually in the House took the money from that, which is popular with some and unpopular with others, but we did it in the Senate. They restored those, and so at this current time, the final agreement that was reached leaves NPR funded again. But what we have done is raise the issue up in front of the American people, and the American people are going to have significant input on the issue. As we go, I don't know, this is the first, I mean, the charter flight, we didn't get one. I kept telling our staff, we were supposed to be doing this last week, and I kept telling our staff, we need time to go through these slides, I need to know what we've got packaged up. And we never got that time. So understand that I'm going to have to fumble through the slides and know what it is I'm trying to say, but I don't know what order things are up here. So if you all permit me, we're going to learn while we're going, but as you ask your questions, I suspect that we're going to be talking about things that we have up here. Now keep in mind that as you go to your questions, nothing has changed. We're still spending $3.5 trillion and we're still bringing in 2.2, which causes the concern about our financial future. Everything else is encapsulated there. Every question that you might have about why we are or why we're not doing what we're doing should go to this point, because everyone now is saying that the greatest risk this country faces is not external terrorism, it is internal debt. And everyone is saying it and no one is doing much about it. So when you wonder about my votes, I think I'll be able to try to explain them and align them with this particular oversight here. So I keep this chart up. By the way, I've been using this on the House floor because I don't think many of my colleagues understand how dire the situation is either. And so we've now used this probably 5 or 10 times on the House floor to express to my colleagues that this is serious. This is serious, serious, serious. And so it's not Republican, Democrat. The Republican deal took $38 billion off of that $3.5 trillion. $38 billion means that we don't even take it down to 3.5 down to 3.4. It doesn't go all the way to 3.4. It's somewhere in between. You do the math. It was not enough. And then the big thing is it didn't do much structurally. In other words, you can, if we wanted to change this desk or this podium here, you would need to do more than just sand the finish off to change it. You would have to redesign and rebuild it. What we're doing in Washington, both sides, are simply sanding some of the money off the programs. I'm sorry, but it's the programs themselves that are the problem. And so you can't sand money equally across or even unequally across the government. So my no vote last Friday night at midnight, whenever we decided we weren't going to shut the government down. I was not one wanting the government to shut down, but I do want us to do significant things. And so my vote was to tell, and I was only 23 of the Republicans who voted against it, and my vote was to tell our leadership that I don't think that you're doing significant things. You're not redesigning this government. You're sanding off some of the finish. And then you notice 59 voted no yesterday, or whenever the last vote was. So that was the day before yesterday. It's creating quite a stir inside our conference that this is a significant number saying we're still not getting it right. Let's go. We've got a question over here, and we'll just kind of walk our way down there.
Really, just a comment. I appreciate your votes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's more difficult than it appears from outside. We had a woodshed meeting yesterday, and so just know that it's getting very uncomfortable because just this idea that we can persist is still hanging on in both parties. It's hanging on in the administration, it's hanging on in our leadership. And so this idea that we can persist and maybe make it okay is well and alive there. Yes?
These seats by
Yeah, just keep your seat. You don't have to stand over here.
My name's Lori English. Congressman Pearce, I'd like to ask you, we are told, all of us that are on fixed income, Social Security, disability, and VA disability, we're told that the cost of living increases are judged by the preceding year. My first question is, how could they tell us in 2008 that we weren't going to get a cost of living increase for 2010? And number two, the original arrangement was supposed to be to offset the loss of revenue from us not getting a COLA. We were supposed to get $250 lump sum. Some people got it last year, some people didn't get it last year, and I just recently found out that the reason some people got it last year was because they paid taxes. In other words, they were people on Social Security disability or VA disability, but they also had pensions coming in from another plan and had to pay tax on that pension. VA and Social Security disability are not taxable incomes. I file every year just to file zero so that the government can keep track of me. If you do not pay taxes, you do not get the $250, but I'm still suffering a loss of over $3,000 for these 2 years, plus I'm getting less now because more Medicare is being taken out of my check, and I'm not getting recouped any of that loss because I don't pay taxes. Well, excuse me, but I served my country in the military, and I also became injured on the job and cannot work. I shouldn't be penalized just because I don't pay taxes. It should have been an across-the-board $250 for everybody, whether you paid in or not, because we're losing money.
I appreciate that.
You paid the $250 and I paid taxes.
Yeah, I think it's probably more random than what you're told, and frankly, you're going to see more and more of this. You're going to see agencies that are just moving money desperately because this imbalance is a very serious imbalance, and the agencies are struggling, the appropriators are struggling, and so I think what you're finding is kind of ad hoc decision making that does not relate to the laws, the rule, or anything. And I've written it down here, and I'll be happy to take a look at it. But just understand that this stability that we've known in the past is not going to be the case. This tells us that things are very dynamically unstable, and we need to start curing it. And the problem is going to get worse because you're going to see, in order to make up this difference, you remember the last meeting we had here, you were here, how are we making up the difference here? That 1.3 trillion you just can't create out of thin air, so what are we doing to create that money? We're printing it. And when we print that money, what's it causing prices to do? You see the prices go up, so then you're squeezed, you on fixed incomes are going to be squeezed even more, and then the pressure is going to be, and so you're going to see a heightening of tension inside the country as we pursue this particular game in the printing of money. And I don't know if you watch the Facebook, how many of you watch on Facebook? We were supposed to post the other night, I started taking pictures, but we were in with Chairman Bernanke, and in the evening meeting, a very rare evening meeting, he came over and the Congress is finished, it's just us and financial services. And that question about this inflation that you say is not here is becoming more present every day that it's not here, and he still, kind of tries to deny that we're not inflating. But these are the top people in our country that are really running around trying to find answers. So I've written down your specific question. I don't know exactly, but
These are the people that don't pay for gas.
Yes.
They don't pay for
Right.
groceries.
Absolutely, they don't. Yes.
Steve Pearce, my name is Jim Huff, and I'm concerned that charity begins at home. And what we need to do is quit funding the UN and some of these borrowing money to take care of these countries that don't care for us. And we can cut a bunch of money there. We can also cut a bunch of money off of the BLM, the Forest Service, and some of these services like that. I feel that these are where we need to look at to make our very steep cuts. I've done some looking at BLM, the amount of people that they've got working for them, the money that goes to them right now. They've got less land today than they did 25 years ago, but they get a higher budget. We need to cut these areas here. And sure, we may need to make some changes in Medicare and that type of stuff, but we also need to take a real good hard look at welfare. I'm in one of them deals, excuse the language, but you gotta pee to pee. In other words, for me to make money to pay the taxes and stuff, I'm subject to a urine test to be able to pay the taxes. Now, these people that are going to take that check of the money that I made, I think they need to take a urine test before they can take and be eligible to get that money.
Yeah, basically, these are the structural things that I was talking about. I use the example of the Forest Service so often because the growth in that particular, I mean, you can't talk about growth nationwide, that doesn't mean anything. Say we got 800,000 employees this year and maybe we only had 700,000, doesn't mean so much. It doesn't to me. But when I talk about driving over to Alamogordo and looking at the Lincoln National Forest, then that means something because I know those people. And it used to take one person to oversee the entire Lincoln National Forest. Today it's over 150. And so every agency, all the way down, so you think about all the Forest Service offices across the country, and you look at the growth in those bureaucracies, that's the reason we're sitting here looking at 3.5 versus 2.2. The cost of our government has expanded, and like you said, we're not doing any more from government. You all, less than 3 years ago, the 3.5 was about 2.6, 2.7. Are you getting $1 trillion more worth of government today than you were getting 3 years ago? I don't think so. And so, again, this is my point with our leadership, that just to take away, sand money down and leave every agency about the same and just take a little bit away is not going to structurally get us where we want to go. And then finally, if we don't start taking some systematic looks at what we're doing, I was just, my wife called 2 or 3 days ago, she's on the east side of the state there in Hobbs, and she was saying, can't you do something? She said, an employer here in the town is just saying that he's been trying for a couple of weeks to find an employee and he cannot find one. He couldn't find one person that could pass the drug screen. What's happening is that people are on unemployment and welfare, and we're subsidizing the cartels through that because we're not doing what you're suggesting. And at some point, we as a nation have to say enough is enough. We can't continue to pay out money that we don't have and make promises that we can't keep. And that's what we're doing. And so, again, huge deal. Yes, sir.
My concern is, you know, everybody's touted that, oh yeah, your last budget deal was $38 billion that you saved. Well, to me, back to your analogy of the podium, once everybody analyzed it and what I read in the newspaper, this $38 billion really wasn't money that you've cut, that you've been spending. It's like, oh, we were going to build a canopy for the podium, and now we've decided we're not going to build a canopy. So that's really our $38 billion. And what the news is reporting is your last budget deal only saved, what, $300 and some million, which
Yeah, that was, yeah, that.
for the CF,
Yeah,
continuing
the
resolution.
the last vote on the CR, it looks like there was a lot of smoke and mirrors there.
Right. When are they going to quit playing these games? And when they say they're going to save money, stop. You know, save money you're actually spending. Quit talking about this phony money that's not being spent.
You're on track with 59 of us. I mean, when you have 59 people leave leadership and vote the other way, and some very long-term members said, wait, we just can't, we're not going to go there. And so it's significant, and that's where it begins with just one person. And believe me, in the very early days, there were just like 2 or 3 of us saying, you know, this thing is not feeling right, it's not looking right. And so it's been a very tedious 3.5. Okay, we're hanging tough. I mean, because I see out here, we travel the district very hard, and I see the outcome. I see who's going to pay the bill if they let the thing completely collapse. And keep in mind, you remember that chart up here on the upper right-hand side that says that our government's just going to cease to function in 2038. Our economy ceases to function. That's where that red line just quits. Graphs don't quit. Graphs continue on. That's a timeline. Those are years on the bottom. And so when it just stops, that tells you our economy is going to stop in 2038 if it lasts that long. My feeling is that it won't last that long because we're doing things to accelerate the problem, not to diminish the problem. Yes, sir.
Congressman Pearce, my name is John Ward. I would be interested in your views of who you see as an emerging candidate for the presidential Republican nominee. It doesn't look like we've got what I would consider personally to be a real strong field right now that could take the White House back to the Republican Party. So would appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm still